John Miller looked out the viewport of the shuttle as it approached the massive space station. The structure was unlike anything humans had built. It stretched for miles in every direction, a gleaming mix of metal and crystal that seemed to capture and reflect the distant starlight. After 20 years as a diplomat on Earth, John never imagined his career would lead him here to become humanity's first representative to the Galactic Council. "Ambassador Miller, we will dock in 5 minutes," said Captain Susan Ford from the pilot's seat. "The council representatives are waiting in the main reception chamber." John straightened his dark blue suit and checked his appearance one last time. First impressions mattered, especially when representing all of humanity to 17 alien species that had been traveling the stars since before humans discovered fire. "Remember the briefing," Susan added. "The council expects new species too. Show gratitude and deference. They believe being invited to join their alliance is the highest honor in the galaxy." John smiled slightly. "I'm sure they do." The shuttle docked with a gentle bump. When the airlock opened, John was greeted by 2 tall, slender beings with pale blue skin and large, almond-shaped eyes. "Ambassador Miller," said the taller one in perfect English. "I am Krell, Junior Diplomatic Officer. Welcome to Galactic Council. Station 1. Please follow me." The hallways of the station were vast and curved gently upward, creating the illusion of endless space. Beings of various shapes and sizes moved purposefully through the corridors. Some walked on multiple legs, others floated, and a few seemed to phase in and out of visibility. John maintained a neutral expression, but his mind recorded every detail. The technology level was advanced, but not impossibly so. Earth was perhaps a century behind in some areas, decades in others. More importantly, he noticed the subtle hierarchy, how certain species moved aside for others, how conversation stopped when specific beings passed by after a short journey they arrived at. A large set of doors that opened silently to reveal a circular chamber. 17 seats arranged in a semicircle faced a single smaller chair in the center. Most of the seats were already filled with beings of wildly different appearances. "The human ambassador," announced Krell, then retreated from the room, walked forward, and stood beside the small chair, not sitting until invited. He looked at each council member in turn, making brief eye contact where possible. Being with dark red scales and 14 waving sensory appendages spoke first. "Ambassador Miller, I am Zax Chural of the Veltraxian Confluence, current council leader. We welcome Earth's representative." His voice carried a tone of superiority, thinly veiled as politeness. "Thank you, council leader," John replied with a small bow. "Earth is honored by this invitation and looks forward to learning from the gathered wisdom of the council." Several of the aliens seemed pleased by this response. John could read enough of their body language to see they appreciated the deference in his words, even if it was mostly diplomatic formality. "Please be seated," said Zax Jurel. "We have much to discuss regarding Earth's potential membership." John sat in the small chair, noting how it forced him to look up at the council members, an intentional design to reinforce the power dynamic. "As you know," continued Zax Jurel, "the development of faster-than-light travel is the primary qualification for council consideration. Your species achieved this milestone remarkably quickly after your industrial revolution. Most species take twice as long." "Humans have always been curious about what lies beyond our world," John replied. A being that appeared to be made of shifting crystals spoke next. "Curious, yes, but also aggressive. Your history is filled with warfare and conquest. The Council has concerns about introducing such tendencies to galactic society." John nodded thoughtfully. "Every intelligent species has its challenges to overcome. Humans have made great progress toward peace and cooperation in recent centuries. Perhaps said a small, furry creature with 6 eyes. But your current planetary governance remains fragmented. Most species unite under a single government before reaching the stars. Diversity of thought and governance has proven to be one of humanity's strengths, John countered politely. It drives innovation and adaptation. The conversation continued for hours as each council member questioned John about Earth's history, technology, culture, and intentions. John answered each question with diplomatic skill, neither apologizing for humanity nor making grand promises. "You understand, Ambassador Miller," said Zax Chural eventually, "that your species is being granted an extraordinary privilege. Most new species wait centuries for even observer status in the Council." John smiled politely. "And Earth appreciates the Council's consideration. However, before we discuss specific terms of human admission, I would like to review the Council's records regarding Earth." The chamber fell silent. "Records?" asked Zax Chural, his appendages suddenly still. "Yes," said John calmly. "Specifically, the Council's non-interference records regarding Earth's development." The representatives exchanged nervous glances. "I have no idea what you're implying," Zax Chural responded, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. "I think you do," John replied, placing a small data tablet on the table before him. The device projected a holographic image of ancient stone carvings. "This is from a site in South America, over 8,000 years old. And this," the image changed to show a metal fragment with strange markings, "was found in ancient China, dating back 10,000 years. John swiped through more images. Artifacts from Egypt, India, Mesopotamia, and more, all showing technology or symbols that clearly did not originate on Earth. "We found evidence of Council technology at 17 archaeological sites across Earth. That's a clear violation of your own prime directive of non-interference, isn't it?" The Council chambers erupted in panicked whispers. Several members began arguing with each other in their native languages. "These items could have many explanations," said Zax Chural, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes, they could," agreed John. "Which is why Earth requests full access to all historical records regarding Council contact with our planet before we proceed with membership discussions." "Such access is unprecedented for a provisional member," said the crystal being. "So is finding alien technology scattered across our planet's ancient history," John replied. Zax Chural's appendages twitched with barely concealed anger. "The Council will need to discuss this request privately. We will reconvene tomorrow." As the Council members filed out, many giving John curious or concerned looks, he remained seated. This was only the opening move in what would be a complex negotiation. Earth needed allies among the stars, but not at the cost of becoming a junior partner with no real power. A small, aquatic-looking being approached John before leaving. "Impressive human," she said quietly. "I am Alara of the Nimbari." Few species question the Council so directly on their first day. Sometimes the direct approach is best, John replied. Alara's skin rippled with blue patterns. "Perhaps, but be careful. The Council doesn't like surprises, and they especially don't like being challenged." After she left, John finally stood and looked around the empty chamber. The real work was just beginning, and he had a feeling the Council had no idea what they'd gotten themselves into by inviting humans to the table. 2 weeks had passed since John Miller's first meeting with the Galactic Council. The initial shock of his revelations had faded, but the tension remained. John sat in his temporary quarters aboard the massive Council station, reviewing documents. On his tablet, the room was comfortable but clearly designed for beings with different proportions than humans. The bed was too long, the chairs too wide, and the ceiling unnecessarily high. Earth's admission to the Council had stalled. The Council claimed they needed time to locate and review the historical records John had requested. He knew this was a delay tactic. They were hoping he would grow impatient and agree to their original terms-limited membership with minimal voting rights. John rubbed his tired eyes and checked the time. It was late by Earth standards, but the station operated on a different cycle. He had another meeting scheduled with the Trade Committee tomorrow morning to discuss potential resource exchanges. The Council was particularly interested in Earth's biodiversity, especially medicinal plants. A soft chime indicated someone at his door. Strange. He wasn't expecting visitors at this hour. "Enter," he called, closing his tablet. The door slid open to reveal Ilara, the junior diplomat from the aquatic Nimbari species he had briefly met. After his first council session, her translucent skin rippled with nervous blue patterns. Small fins along her arms twitched slightly. "Ambassador Miller," she said quietly, "may I speak with you privately?" John gestured to a chair. "Of course. Please sit down." Ilara closed the door and looked around the room carefully before sitting. "What I'm about to tell you violates several council secrecy protocols," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But you deserve to know there's far more to your species' history with the council than even your evidence suggests." John kept his face neutral, but his interest was piqued. "I'm listening." "The Council has been monitoring Earth for over 30,000 years, Ilara explained. "Not just observing, but actively interfering. Those artifacts you found? They're only a small fraction of the Council's presence on your planet." "What kind of interference are we talking about?" John asked. Ilara's skin pulsed with darker blue patterns. "Genetic manipulation, cultural steering, resource extraction. The Council has been treating Earth as an experiment and a resource depot for millennia." John's hands tightened on the arms of his chair, but his voice remained calm. "And the purpose of offering us membership now? Control," Ilara said simply. "Earth sits on a cosmic crossroads of valuable hyperspace lanes. Your solar system contains rare minerals critical for advanced starship construction. But more importantly, your species is developing too quickly. The Council fears what humans might become if left unchecked." John processed this information carefully. It aligned with suspicions Earth's intelligence agencies had harbored for years. "Why are you telling me this, Ilara? You're risking a lot." Her skin rippled with sad patterns. "Because my people were once in your position. We trusted the Council. 300 years later, our homeworld is environmentally devastated, and half my species works in Council mining operations." She stood up, moving toward the door. "The Council doesn't want partners, Ambassador Miller. They want resources and strategic positioning. The admission terms they're offering would essentially make Earth a glorified mining colony with minimal voting rights." "Thank you for this information," John said. "I'll ensure your role in this remains confidential." After Ilara left, John sat in silence for several minutes. Then he activated a small device from his pocket, a quantum communicator. That couldn't be detected or intercepted by Council technology. "This is Ambassador Miller. Get me the President and Joint Chiefs. Security Protocol Alpha 9. We need to accelerate Plan Omega." The next morning, John entered the Trade Committee meeting with renewed purpose. 5 Council representatives sat around a curved table, including Zach Sturrell, who wasn't officially part of the committee, but had taken a special interest in the Earth negotiations. "Ambassador Miller," greeted the Dorsian representative, a reptilian being named Thar Vek. "We have prepared a preliminary resource exchange proposal." He slid a data crystal across the table. John inserted the crystal into his tablet and reviewed the contents. The proposal was exactly what Ilara had warned him about: extensive mining rights in Earth's asteroid belt, harvesting rights for rare plant species, and limited technology exchange in return. "This is an interesting starting point," John said diplomatically. but I'm afraid it falls short of Earth's expectations. Zach's chiral S appendages twitched with irritation. Your expectations are irrelevant. This is a standard agreement for new member species. John smiled slightly. Perhaps in the past, but Earth's situation is unique, as I believe you're well aware. He placed his own data crystal on the table. This is our counter-proposal. We're prepared to share certain biological resources and allow limited mining operations in exchange. For full access to Council medical technology and FTL drive specifications, the committee members exchanged shocked glances. Zach's chiral S appendages went completely still, a sign of extreme anger among Veltraxians. Such technology is only shared with full members after centuries of proven loyalty, Tharvek said. Considering the Council's long history of unauthorized interference with Earth's development, we believe accelerated technology sharing is appropriate compensation, John replied calmly. Zach's chiral leaned forward. You continue to make these unfounded accusations, Ambassador. Where is your proof of this alleged interference? The proof is in the historical records I requested 2 weeks ago, John said. Records you claim to still be locating. These processes take time, Zach's chiral said dismissively. The Council archives span millions of years. John leaned back in his chair. That's interesting, because according to our intelligence, the records regarding Earth were accessed by your office just 3 days after my arrival. A room went completely silent. You're spying on Council operations? Tharvek asked, his voice a dangerous hiss. Let's call it verification, John replied. Earth isn't entering these negotiations blindly, Council leader. We've been preparing for this moment longer than you realize. Later that day, as John walked through the station's central garden area, a massive space with plants from hundreds of worlds, he was approached by a tall, insectoid being. The Zyctal ambassador was one of the few Council members who had shown genuine interest in Earth culture. Ambassador Miller, she clicked in her native language, translated by John's earpiece. Your meeting with the Trade Committee is causing quite a stir. Is it? John asked innocently. You must understand, most species approach the Council with reverence and gratitude. Your directness is unprecedented. John looked up at the artificial sky of the garden dome. Perhaps it's time for a change in how the Council operates. The Zyctal's antennae twitched thoughtfully. There are those who might agree with you. Not all Council species benefit equally from the current power structure. She lowered her voice. A word of caution, Ambassador. Zach's chiral has called for a special security briefing regarding Earth. When that happens, it usually precedes more forceful negotiations. John nodded in understanding. Thank you for the warning, Ambassador. After she departed, John tapped his communicator again. Miller to Earth Command. Time to implement Phase 2. Is the fleet in position? The reply came immediately. All ships at designated coordinates, Ambassador. Defensive positions established? We're ready on your signal. John smiled as he watched alien beings stroll through the garden, completely unaware of what was coming. Perfect. Let them make the first move. The main Council chamber was filled to capacity. Word had spread quickly about the unusual negotiations with the human ambassador. Species that normally showed little interest in admission proceedings had sent representatives to witness the event. John Miller stood at the center of the chamber, facing the 17 primary Council members. He could feel the tension in the room. Zach's chiral called the session to order, his 14 sensory appendages moving in complex patterns that conveyed his irritation to those who could read Veltraxian body language. John could read it well enough. Emergency session has been called to address concerns regarding Earth's application for Council membership, Zach's chiral announced. Ambassador Miller has raised accusations about historical Council interference with Earth and has made demands that fall outside our established protocols. John noticed how Zax Churl framed the situation, placing the blame on Earth for disrupting the process. It was a clever political move. The Council has reviewed the human ambassador's claims and found them to be based on misinterpretations of archaeological evidence, continued Zax Churl. We have prepared a revised membership offer that takes into account Earth's concerns while maintaining Council standards. A data crystal was passed to John. He inserted it into his tablet and quickly scanned the contents. The offer was barely different from the original, a few minor concessions on resource rights, but still no access to advanced technology or full voting privileges. John looked up and surveyed the chamber. He spotted Alara among the Nimbari delegation, her skin patterns conveying concern. The Zytal ambassador's antennae were perfectly still a sign of intense focus. Several other species appeared uncomfortable with the proceedings. It was time to make his move. Honored Council members, John began, his voice clear and measured. Earth appreciates the time and consideration given to our application. However, after careful review, I must inform you that Earth respectfully declines the current terms. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Species rarely rejected Council offers. Instead, John continued, Earth proposes an alternative framework for our relationship with the Galactic Council. He activated his tablet, projecting a holographic display visible to all members. Earth will join as a probationary member for 50 years, but with full voting rights and complete autonomy over its solar system's resources. Additionally, Earth demands access to all historical records regarding previous Council contact with humanity. This is preposterous. Zax Churl thundered, his appendages whipping about in agitation. No species enters the Council with such terms. You should be grateful for any admission at all. John's smile didn't reach his eyes. Perhaps I wasn't clear. These aren't requests. They're requirements for our participation. The Vexidian ambassador, a being covered in sharp spines, hissed through needle-like teeth. And if we refuse? Then Earth will pursue 3 alternate courses of action, John replied calmly. First, we will publicize evidence of Council violations to every member world. Second, we'll establish independent trade relationships with non-Council worlds. And third, we'll open diplomatic relations with the Andromeda Coalition. The mention of the Council's interstellar rivals caused immediate uproar. The Andromeda Coalition was a loose alliance of species from the neighboring galaxy species that rejected the Council's authority and operated under different principles. You wouldn't dare, Zax Churl said, voice dangerously quiet. The Coalition is dangerous and unstable. Perhaps, John acknowledged, but they've offered us full membership without conditions. This was a calculated bluff. Earth had detected Coalition communications, but established no direct contact. Tharavik, the Dorsian security chief, stood up. This sounds like a threat. Ambassador Miller, the Council does not respond well to threats. It's not a threat, John clarified. It's a statement of intent. Earth prefers alliance with the Council, but we will not accept subordinate status. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some Council members appeared outraged, others thoughtful. Zax Churl conferred hurriedly with his closest allies. The Council requires time to consider Earth's proposal, Zax Churl finally announced. We will recess for 3 hours. As the members filed out, John received an encrypted message on his communicator. Defensive fleet in position. Stealth probes confirm unusual activity at Council military docks. Proceed with caution. John wasn't surprised. He had expected the Council, or at least certain factions within it, to consider military options. Earth's stance had challenged their authority in a way no species had dared for centuries. As he left the chamber, Alara approached him, her movements conveying urgency. Ambassador, they're planning something, she whispered. The Council never negotiates. They dictate. Be careful. John nodded. That's exactly what I'm counting on. You don't understand, Ilara insisted. Zaxtural has activated the Emergency Powers Protocol. It allows him to take action without full Council approval during existential threats. To Council security. An Earth qualifies as an existential threat? John asked, raising an eyebrow. Not Earth, Ilara clarified. Your ideas. A concept that new species can demand equal standing. It threatens the entire power structure they've built over millennia. John considered this information. Thank you, Ilara. You're taking a significant risk by telling me this. Her skin rippled with determined patterns. My people have suffered under Council exploitation for generations. Perhaps it's time for change. After Ilara left, John made his way to a quiet section of the station's botanical garden. Surrounded by exotic plants from 100 worlds, he activated his secure communicator. Miller to Earth Command. The Council is likely planning military action. Zaxtural has invoked emergency powers. Implement Protocol Guardian. Transmit all evidence we've gathered to every Council embassy on Earth, and send the diplomatic package to the coordinates we detected for the Andromeda Coalition. Understood, Ambassador, came the reply. Guardian Protocol activated. Evidence distribution in progress. Coalition message prepared. John looked up at the artificial sky of the garden dome. He had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but the Council's resistance was predictable. They had maintained their power for too long to surrender it easily. A notification chimed on his communicator. The Council was reconvening earlier than scheduled. Never a good sign. As John made his way back to the chamber, he noted increased security presence. Armored guards from various species lined the corridors, watching him with obvious suspicion. The chamber was different when he entered. Only the High Council leadership was present, the 7 most powerful members, led by Zaxtural. None of the junior representatives or observers were allowed. Ambassador Miller, began Zaxtural coldly, the Council has made its decision. John stood tall, prepared for whatever came next. Behind his calm exterior, a plan was already in motion. One that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. John awoke to the sound of blaring alarms. The lights in his quarters flashed red, and a computerized voice repeated a message in multiple languages. Security lockdown in progress. All personnel remain in quarters. He quickly dressed and tried to access the station's information network through his tablet. It was blocked. Next, he attempted to use his communicator to contact Earth. That too was jammed. Through the viewport in his room, he could see unusual activity in the docking area. 3 large Council warships had surrounded the Earth observation vessel that had brought him to the station. This was not unexpected. John had prepared for this possibility from the moment he arrived on the station. He walked calmly to his desk and pressed his hand against a seemingly ordinary part of his luggage. A hidden compartment opened, revealing a small device no larger than his thumb. He activated it and placed it back in the compartment. 30 minutes later, his door slid open. 4 armed guards entered, 2 Dorsian and 2 Veltraxian. Ambassador Miller, said the lead guard, you are required to attend an emergency council session. John nodded and allowed himself to be escorted through the corridors. He noted that the station seemed eerily empty compared to its usual busy state. Most species had been confined to their quarters during whatever operation was underway. When they reached the council chamber, only the 7 High Council members were present. None of the junior representatives or observers who had attended previous sessions. Ambassador Miller, Zaxtural began coldly as John was brought to the center of the chamber. Your species has proven itself unworthy of council membership. John raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Zaxtural continued, your vessel has been detained for scanning restricted areas of council space, a serious violation of galactic law. An interesting accusation, John replied, considering my ship has remained stationary since arrival. Evidence suggests otherwise, said Tharvik, the Dorsian security chief. We've detected unauthorized transmissions to Earth military installations. Those were diplomatic updates, as permitted in our visitation agreement. John countered. The crystal-bodied council member spoke next. We have intercepted communications indicating Earth has deployed military vessels in violation of council space. This is an act of aggression. Earth has deployed no vessels in council territory, John stated firmly. This was technically true. Earth's ships were positioned just outside the official council borders. Zax Churel slammed a limb on the table. Enough. The council has voted. Earth's application is rejected. You will be escorted home with a warning. Stay within your solar system or face severe consequences. John stood silently for a moment, studying each council member's face. Then he smiled slightly. I see. Before I go, I'm obligated to inform you that all our conversations have been recorded and transmitted to Earth through quantum entanglement communications technology you apparently didn't realize we possessed. The council members exchanged nervous glances. Your threats, your manipulation, your attempt to frame us all documented, and now in the hands of every Earth government, and, more importantly, every council embassy on Earth. The chamber fell silent. Furthermore, John continued, the Earth Defense Fleet isn't just in our solar system. We've had stealth observation posts throughout this sector for years. As we speak, 27 Earth vessels have decloaked and surrounded this station. On cue, the chamber's screens activated without anyone's command. They showed images of Earth's advanced warships technology far beyond what the Council believed humans possessed positioned strategically around the station. This is impossible, Tharvek hissed. Our sensors would have detected them. Your sensors are based on technology that's over 3 centuries old, John explained. Earth may be new to interstellar travel, but we've been preparing for this moment for decades. He walked closer to the council table, no longer intimidated. You see, we've known about the council for much longer than you think. Those archaeological sites I showed you, we left them for you to find. We've been studying you while you thought you were studying us. Zaxtrol's appendages trembled with rage. You dare to threaten the Galactic Council? We represent thousands of worlds. No, John corrected him. You represent 17 species who control thousands of worlds. And based on our research, at least half of those species are exploited just as you plan to exploit Earth. He tapped his communicator, which suddenly worked again. Captain Ford, status report. Susan Ford's voice came through clearly. Earth fleet in position. Ambassador. Council communications have been temporarily restricted to this station only. Quantum. Entanglement transmitters have delivered all evidence packages to the designated recipients. Thank you, Captain. John turned back to the stunned Council. Oh, and those Council warships surrounding my vessel? They're currently disabled. Non-destructively, of course. We have no desire for conflict. What do you want? Asked the normally silent Mithril representative, a being of pure energy contained in a special suit. The same thing I stated in our last session, John replied. Equal partnership. Fair treatment. Transparency about the Council's past actions on Earth, and reform of how the Council treats newer species. He looked directly at Zax Churro. This isn't just about Earth. It's about every species that has been manipulated, exploited, or controlled by the Council. How many worlds have had their resources stripped? How many civilizations have been kept technologically dependent? Several of the Council members looked uncomfortable. John had struck a nerve. Ambassador Miller, said the Zytal representative, her antennae twitching thoughtfully. Your actions today are unprecedented. So is the situation, John replied. Earth will not be colonized, exploited, or controlled. We come as equals or not at all. A tense silence filled the chamber as the council members processed the dramatic shift in power. Their entire strategy had been based on the assumption that humans were technologically inferior and politically naive. That assumption had proven catastrophically wrong. Tharvik leaned toward Zaxchurl and whispered urgently. The council leader's appendages moved in patterns of extreme agitation. "We will require time to consult with our governments," Zaxchurl finally said, his voice strained. "Of course," John agreed. "Earth is patient. We've waited thousands of years for this moment. We can wait a few more days for your answer." As John left the chamber, he received another message from Earth Command. Guardian protocol successful. Multiple council species have requested emergency communications with their embassies on Earth. The Andromeda Coalition has acknowledged receipt of our diplomatic package and expressed interest in formal relations. In the corridor, he found Ilara waiting for him, her skin pulsing with bright patterns of excitement and fear. "What have you done?" she whispered. "The entire station is buzzing with rumors. Some say Earth ships have surrounded us." "They have," John confirmed quietly. "But no one is in danger unless the council decides to escalate further." Ilora's eyes widened. "This changes everything." "That's the idea," John replied. "The council crossed a line when they tried to intimidate Earth. We're simply showing them that the old ways of doing things no longer work." As they walked through the corridor, John noticed other species watching him with new expressions, some fearful, others hopeful. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted in a single day. "What happens now?" Ilara asked. John smiled. "Now we negotiate. As equals." 6 months had passed since the confrontation between Earth and the Galactic Council. John Miller stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Earth Embassy on the Council Station. The embassy was built in a mixture of Earth and Council. Architectural styles, a physical symbol of the new relationship being forged. From the large windows, John could see ships from dozens of worlds coming and going from the station. Among them were several Earth vessels, now a common sight in Council. Space. Behind him, representatives from 12 Council species waited nervously for his attention. "Ambassador Miller," said Ilara, now serving as the official liaison between Earth and the Reformed Council. "The revised Treaty of Galactic Cooperation awaits your signature." John turned from the window and walked to the large table where the treaty was displayed. The document represented a fundamental restructuring of the Galactic Council itself. Following the standoff, 7 Council species had broken from Zaxchurl-S leadership and allied with Earth, recognizing the opportunity to end centuries of exploitation. The old power structure had collapsed within weeks. Zaxchurl and his closest allies had been removed from leadership. Investigations revealed centuries of resource theft, species manipulation, and falsified historical records affecting dozens of worlds. "I never wanted to force a galactic revolution," John remarked to Ilara as he prepared to sign. "But perhaps the galaxy needed one," she replied. Her skin now displayed patterns of confidence and hope, emotions rarely seen among the Nimbari before. For millennia, the Council operated on intimidation and secrecy. You showed everyone there was another way. The treaty established new principles: transparent governance, resource sovereignty for all member worlds, and reparations for historically exploited species. Earth would chair the Reformation Committee for its first decade. John picked up the G. Ceremonial pen made from materials from all 18 worlds, now represented on the Council. He looked at the gathered representatives. Some, like Ilara and the Zeigtal ambassador, showed clear approval. Others, particularly those who had been closely aligned with Zaxchurl, seemed resigned rather than enthusiastic. "Before I sign," John said, "I want to be clear about Earth's position. We didn't come here to replace one form of dominance with another. Our goal is partnership, genuine cooperation between equals. He gestured to the stars visible through the window. There's too much out there for us to waste time and resources fighting among ourselves. The Andromeda Coalition has already proposed joint scientific missions with our reformed council. Regions of space previously unexplored await us. We have more to gain together than apart. The Zyke Tau ambassador clicked her mandibles in agreement. Your species brought fresh perspective when it was most needed, Ambassador Miller. Many of us had grown too comfortable with the old ways, even when they no longer served the greater good. John signed the treaty with a steady hand. The room erupted in a variety of sounds, the equivalent of applause from multiple species. Screens around the embassy displayed the ceremony for citizens across council space. The signing is complete, announced the new council chairperson, a Mithral representative who had supported the reforms from the beginning. Let the record show that today marks the beginning of the reformed Galactic Council. After the ceremony, John retreated to his private office. The walls were decorated with items from earth paintings, photographs, and small sculptures. Reminder of home during his extended mission. Captain Susan Ford, who had commanded the Earth vessel during the crisis, entered after a brief knock. Now promoted to Admiral, she oversaw Earth's growing fleet of ships. Quite a day, Ambassador, she said, sitting across from him. When we first arrived at this station, I never imagined it would end like this. Neither did I, John admitted. I expected negotiations, compromises, maybe some tense moments. Not a complete restructuring of galactic politics. The old council made a critical error, Susan observed. They assumed we were like every other species they'd encountered, easily intimidated by their technology and unity. John nodded. They never bothered to really understand humans. If they had, they would have known that threatening us rarely works. His communicator chimed with a message from Earth. The president wanted an update on the treaty signing. As John prepared his response, he received another message, this one from an unexpected source. It was from Zax Churl, now living in exile on his homeworld. The message was brief. You have appended the work of millennia, human. History will judge whether this was wisdom or folly. John didn't bother to respond. The former council leader had still not grasped the fundamental truth. The galaxy had changed, and those unwilling to change with it would be left behind. Later, as John prepared to return to Earth for consultation with world leaders, he stood again at the observation window. Ships from Earth and a dozen other worlds moved through space together, trading, exploring, cooperating. It was still fragile, this new alliance, but it held promise. His tablet displayed reports from across council space. Former colony worlds were establishing their own governments. Resource-sharing agreements were being negotiated based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. Scientific cooperation was yielding advances that would benefit all species. Ambassador, said his assistant from the doorway, your shuttle is ready. John took one last look at the stars. They crossed the wrong species, he murmured to himself. The journey back to Earth, John reviewed the events that had led to this moment, the Council's arrogance, their underestimation of humanity, their attempt to intimidate rather than negotiate. So many mistakes that could have been avoided with simple respect. As Earth came into view, a blue jewel against the blackness of space, John received a final message from the president. Congratulations, John. They never saw us coming. John smiled as he composed his reply. They crossed the wrong species. More importantly, they crossed the wrong diplomat. The shuttle entered Earth's atmosphere, streaking across the sky like a shooting star. Below, a world united by its first contact. With alien life waited for news of its place in the galaxy. John had good news to share. Humanity had found its place, not as subjects or junior partners, but as equals in a community of worlds. The Council had expected humans to bow down before their power and history. Instead, humans had rewritten the rules of the game. As the shuttle touched down, John thought about the lesson that had been learned across the galaxy. Humanity might be new to interstellar politics, but they were quick studies, and they played to win.